Learning how to build world-class financial models has been a total game changer in my career. It's allowed me to connect with some really impressive stakeholders, make a ton of money, and have a lot of fun along the way. And if you're new to financial modeling, or you want to beef up your skills, in this video, I'm going to walk you through my preferred template that I use across the 100 of financial models that I built in my career. And if you want to skip this tutorial and get this template connected directly to your data, you can try our tool, Model Wiz. We'll bring in your QuickBooks Online data, shape and transform it, create a 3-statement model, and make it very easy for you to enter in your projections, print to PDF, and showcase some beautiful dashboards to stakeholders. So let's get started with an inside look on the template. All right, so the first tab that we're going to look at is this drivers tab over here. Now, I remember when I was first building my career in FP&A, my manager told me that her manager once upon a time explained to her the concept of a drivers tab. The idea is that you want to try to consolidate as many of your assumptions related to your financial model as possible into this one tab. So as the users of the model will tweak those assumptions, they can see the output. And that's really what this tab does. We have every single account across my P&L and across my balance sheet. Now, notice another thing. I'm pulling in all of my historical data, and then I have placeholders for where I can enter in all of my projections. If I expand this column over here, you'll see that I have this driver. And what's neat is this is a dropdown which allows you to control any driver that you want for each account. So if I, let's say, change this to 10%, you'll see that everything is taking a 6-month average and then also growing by 10%. I can instead change this to, let's say, the prior month, and now the prior month is selected, or an annual assumption where I can say it's 120,000 a year, which comes out to 10,000 every single month. Now, although these have balances for the historicals and projections for every account, this could also be where I maybe do some more complex calculations for how I get to these projections. Now, if those calculations are big enough, I'll oftentimes put that in another tab, which I'll show you in a sec. But let me first show you how exactly I got these figures pulled into my drivers tab. And that's what brings me to these tables over here. This one is called PBC profit and loss, and this one is called PBC balance sheet. Now, if you've ever worked in public accounting, you know that PBC stands for prepared by client. So this is a source document that I bring into my model from my accounting software. And it's in a structured format, similar to how a trial balance is presented, only it shows each and every period for each and every account. This makes it a lot easier to pull in the balances into my drivers tab with a simple sum ifs, like you see over here. So if I just extend this over here, you can see that I have this unique identifier called account ID. I'm summing all the values if the account ID matches, and if the date matches to the period that I'm in. This one formula can now be applied for all of my historicals across my profit and loss. Now, getting your data into this structured format can be done by what's known as unpivoting your data. Now, I have a separate video where I show you how to unpivot data with a tool like Power Query. But if you don't want to do that, you can simply export your income statement in this format over here and instead pull your data into the drivers in a different way. I find that this format is just a lot easier to work with. Now, because we're pulling in data from one location, i.e. this source tab, into another location, this drivers tab, we have to set up an error check to make sure that all the data from the source made its way to the destination. Now, this is a really important concept in financial modeling, error checking. It's impossible to monitor each and every single cell in a spreadsheet. We're talking hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of cells of data. Instead, an error check is designed to only notify you if a check doesn't match. And the most common checks are when you're moving data from one place to another. So all these checks over here are comparing the source information from that tab that I just showed to the information shown on this tab. Watch what happens if I accidentally overwrite something. You'll see that now I have an error, and it's telling me to check the error check tab. When I now go to this tab, I can see that I have one error on my drivers. Going back to my drivers, I can see that my revenue specifically has an error. Watch what happens when I undo that mistake. Now my model is back to functioning properly. Now, I can't stress enough the importance of setting up error checks in your models. If you don't, you may have a vital error that you don't realize, and it could go to the wrong person and just wreak havoc for you. Now, notice another thing about this drivers tab and really every section of my financial model. I have amounts in different colors. This is very common in financial modeling. You'll have inputs that are shown in blue, calculations that are shown in black, amounts pulling from different cells in purple, or oftentimes I see green instead, and then error checks that show in red. The error checks will show 0 if everything ties, and will populate an amount if it doesn't tie, like we saw before. Now, you may not remember that, or more importantly, you may pass this file to someone else who doesn't know that. That's why I like to have this instructions tab. It allows me to understand what are the cells in the tab that are editable versus read-only, and which tabs I can edit versus which ones are also read-only. Now, this is another really important concept in financial modeling. It's very rare that you'll be the only one in this financial model. Instead, it's common that you'll be working with other people on your team, or potentially management, or maybe investors who have their own team and want to see what's going on in the model. The easier it is for your model to audit, the more smooth of a process you'll have working with others. All right. So now that we have our drivers tab, a centralized locations where we can pull in all the historical values and enter in all of our projections, we're able to create our 3-statement model. And when I say the word 3-statement model, of course, I'm talking about an income statement, a balance sheet, and a statement of cash flows. Now, the beauty of the design of our financial model is that these 3 tabs just pull directly from the drivers tab. It doesn't matter if it's a historical value or a projection, everything pulls from the drivers tab. The drivers tab is one of the few tabs that pulls from a different source for historicals and populates projections differently. Now, for cash flows, that can't be found on the drivers tab because we're actually calculating that ourselves. Now, I have a separate video where I walk you through how to create a statement of cash flows, because the general idea is that to create a statement of cash flows, all you need is an income statement and a balance sheet. So a 3-statement model is really just a mechanism for how you can enter in values that will ultimately populate these 3 financial statements. And like we spoke about before, sometimes your calculations and buildup will be so large that it's not really feasible to put it in this one drivers tab. Instead, you'll want to put it in another tab and link the values to the drivers tab. And what's the most important area of any financial model 9.9 times out of 10? Of course, it's your revenue build. So notice how the driver here is pointing to this revenue summary tab, and all of these values are in purple because it's linking to another tab. So let's hop over to that tab, but first I have to give you a caveat. There's no one size fits all or one template that you can use for revenue forecasting, because every business is different. Oftentimes, this is the one area where the founder or management may have their own Google Sheet or Excel file just building up a light revenue forecast that you could then link into the financial model. It doesn't matter what format that you use, as long as your inputs are driving your outputs. This way, you build credibility and you could spot check whenever the month takes place where you were on and where you were off. So in this example, I'm separating the amounts that I'm going to bill between my existing customers, my pipeline customers, and any new customers, and then the corresponding revenue between all of that. For businesses on the accrual basis, what you bill and what you recognize in revenue most of the time won't really be the same. But while there's no one set template for forecasting revenue, there is a set template for forecasting your largest expense. Of course, I'm talking about your headcount. Now, most businesses have people on their team, and most of the time, it's going to be not only their largest expense, but also the toughest one to control. So this is an area where you're going to want very detailed calculations to make sure that you don't make a mistake. I once made a mistake, and by the time I submitted it to the client, I didn't realize I had understated the actual cash impact by about $3 million on the year. Really nasty, all because of a simple headcount error. So in this tab, I can import in my existing hires by title, department, start and end date, salary, and I can even give a raise, a bonus, or mark them as a full-time employee so that they get benefits and taxes, or consultant. This table over here then calculates their gross salary. And notice how this over here has a less amount than here for this hire, or CTO. The reason is because we're prorating this person's salary who started in the middle of the month. So in this case, our CTO started in May of 2025, and because of that, we're prorating the very first month. Now, the same is true if the person is terminated mid-month. So let's say things didn't work out for our CTO, they were only here until July 15th. We don't want to schedule a full payment in our model for July. Instead, I'll prorate that last payment for about half the month. Now, one other thing I forgot to mention about our model. Notice how everything is shown on a monthly basis and then gets aggregated on an annual and quarterly basis as well. This makes it really easy to toggle views. And I like to have these views separate so that all of my years are in one place, all of my quarters are in another place, and the months are in another place. So anytime that I'm working on a formula in the monthly section, I could just copy it from left to right without worrying about an annual or quarterly subtotal in the middle throwing off my calculations. Now, with the gross salary in place, I could understand how many hires I have for each department. I can then understand my expenses by department. So this is showing me for general administrative how much I'm paying in salaries for full-time employees, and then the applicable payroll tax, benefits, admin fees, and any applicable bonuses. The same is true for all these other departments. Now, if I want to change the assumption for how much I'm paying in these fully loaded costs, I could always adjust this section here. Usually, it's about 20% of a full-time employee salary. And now that I have the information from my Headcount tab filled out, I could link it back to my Drivers tab. So notice how all this information is purple again, and it's pulling from my Headcount tab, so that any changes will flow into the projections. All right, so we covered the Drivers tab, error checking, instructions, our revenue, and our largest expense. It's also common to have separate tabs whenever forecasting the balance sheet, because that typically involves waterfalls to amortize values between the balance sheet and the income statement. Let me show you what I mean. So in this example, I'm pulling in my balance from the Drivers tab as of my last month of actuals. And why don't I just forecast $100,000 in sales in this period? So I want to now understand how exactly am I going to collect these amounts that are sitting in accounts receivable or are going to enter accounts receivable. And that's what this table over here shows me. I can understand for every month from the initial month, what percentage of that balance will I collect in each month. So this is saying each month, my existing receivables balance, I'll collect 50% 30 days later, then 25% 30 days after that, and another 25% after that. For new sales, I can change that. So let's say it's 50% I collect in the same month that I bill and 50% that I collect 30 days later. Now watch what happens when I extend this section over here to get my cash disbursements. Over here, I have my receivables amount from earlier, $110,000 as my last month of actuals. I can then see 50% collected in the first month of projections, 25% after that, and 25% after that. Now, the same is true for my new sales, right? This is $100,000 over here, and I'm collecting $50,000 in the same month and another $50,000 a month later. If I change this to, let's say, 0% and then put all of it at 100%, now this $100,000 that I'm projecting in November gets collected in December. My final accounts receivable balance formula showcases my beginning balance, starting with my ending balance from my last month of actuals, plus any new sales, minus the receipts to get my ending balance. Just like we're doing with all of our other tabs, I then link that back into my Drivers tab. Now, accounts receivable is just one area of the balance sheet that you'll want to forecast. Another example can be accounts payable, where I could tag all the expenses on my P&L by credit card, immediate, or payment terms. And again, with that same waterfall, I could understand how those balances are going to be paid off. Finally, linking the values back into our Drivers tab. Now, there's also CapEx, and you could potentially have one for debt or equity raising. It's really up to you. But once you're done with forecasting the balance sheet, you pretty much have a first pass at your forecast. But it's not enough to just stay there. You now have to actually show the information. And I like to always do that with a beautiful dashboard. Now, again, that's a huge reason why I built Model Wiz, to make this all a breeze and also to unlock some beautiful financial reporting that most people just don't know how to do. So in this example, I have a KPI dashboard. And what I love about this is I'm only showcasing the 8 key metrics related to my business, and I could also understand how that compares against a prior period or a prior year. Now, if I just hit this plus button, I could change this from next month to, let's say, this quarter, and now I'm comparing quarterly values against a prior quarter and prior year. I could also check this box to compare against my budget whenever I have that set. Now, budget versus actuals is a really important part of a financial model, which I'll get to in a sec. But first, let's go over the summary financials dashboard. And this is a zoomed out view of every single account across my profit and loss, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows. And just like in the other tabs that you saw, I can understand that information across a year-to-date or trailing 12-month basis, an annual basis, a quarterly basis, or a monthly basis. So if I wanted to, let's say, just show year-to-date information, well, I can just hide all of the other columns like this, so that now I have that year-to-date view of my summary P&L, balance sheet, and cash flows. And if I wanted to, let's say, show projections for 2026 or quarterly values, it becomes really easy by just hiding and unhiding these columns. So anytime I'm creating a forecast, I'd like to start here at this macro view once I have a first pass to zoom out and ask myself, do these numbers make sense? So in this case, these are just dummy numbers, but one of the things that I'd probably call out if this is a real model that I was reviewing is, whoa, look at this revenue jump from September and October to November and on. More than double our revenue and hence double our costs. Now, margins also are going up a decent amount from 91% to 95%. This is where I'll really spend most of my time, comparing the last few months of actuals to the first few months of projections. Because even if you have big plans for the future, your model should show a gradual transition rather than any sharp curves. And once you're comfortable with a first pass at your financial model, it's time to save that down as a budget. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to lock down that file that you saved down and not edit it ever. Each month, you'll then roll forward your financial model and compare against that budget. And that's what this last dashboard does. It allows us to understand across the key areas of our profit and loss and cash flows, how much did we budget, how much did we actually do, and where were we on and where were we off. Now, actualizing a model is a real big pain because oftentimes you have new line items in your chart of accounts, which causes you to have to identify those line items and link that up accordingly. But using software, you could actually just utilize an automation to roll forward the information. And as you do that, the software will detect any of the new accounts and update all of your schedules accordingly. And if you want to know more about the budget versus actuals process, I suggest you check out this video over here where I do a complete deep dive. I'm Josh, your CFO guy. And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.